The Xbox Series X will be the most powerful next-generation console when it launches this holiday, and most people expect it to be either the same price as the PlayStation 5 or $100 more expensive. But is there a chance that the Series X could be cheaper than the PlayStation 5? Well, one prominent industry insider thinks that is exactly the case, and we gotta talk about it. What is going on, everybody? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and if you could do me a big favor, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Now, this past week, Microsoft put on an Inside Xbox, dubbed it the first look at gameplay for Xbox Series X titles. A lot of people were disappointed by the lack of gameplay, prompting Aaron Greenberg of Microsoft to come out and apologize for the event. But that day after the show was over, Jeff Keighley had Peter Moore and Michael Pachter on his podcast to talk about the show, and eventually the conversation shifted into next-gen pricing for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. The common line of thinking lately is that both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 will be about $500. They'll be on equal footing, but the Series X will be a more capable machine. However, that is something Michael Pachter disagrees with, as he thinks the Xbox Series X is actually going to be $100 cheaper than the PlayStation 5, and that could really shake up next generation. During this podcast, Michael Pachter suggested that Microsoft will be waiting for Sony to make the first move before the company announces a cheaper Xbox Series X. Quote, "From what I've seen, Sony's going to have to charge $500 for the PlayStation 5, and Microsoft has a big balance sheet. If they want to cut the price by $100, just price below the PlayStation 5 and subsidize the first 10 million units, they will. So I think they're waiting to have Sony blink first, and then they'll reveal the price, very likely $400. Peter Moore was also in agreement with Michael, and if you don't know who Peter Moore is, he was the head of Sega during the Dreamcast days, and also the head of Xbox during the early 360 days before Don. Hey, we have a console for you. It's called the 360. Matrick came in and essentially torpedoed the brand with that Xbox One reveal in 2013. Peter went on to say, Michael's right. What both companies are going through right now is asking how much can we afford to lose in the first 12 to 18 months. What is our attach rate of software to hardware? What are we willing to do in year 1, 2, and 3 to hit 10 million units? Microsoft right now, the stock price, the market cap, everything's flying for them. The Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, say, you know, this is our opportunity right now. As we did with the 360, let's get in, let's price it right. Now, if you take what Michael and Peter here are saying and combine it with what Phil Spencer, the current head of Xbox, said on Ryan McCaffrey's IGN show about how they have the backing of Microsoft and that they will be agile on price, and I do see why you could come to the conclusion that Xbox Series X could potentially undercut the PlayStation 5, but is it really realistic to expect that? We're going to examine it from both angles. Now, one of the things I agree with Pachter on here 100% is the idea that Microsoft is waiting for Sony to make the first move. I agree completely with him. Microsoft is clearly waiting for Sony and trying to force them to not only give the release date, but the price, because everything kind of revolves around that price. We know that Microsoft is rumored to be building a cheaper system, and I think Microsoft wants to see what Sony is going to price the PS5 at, so they know what they should price the Series X at, and what they can price the Xbox Lockhart at. Now, Pachter thinks the PlayStation 5 is going to be $500 because of the component costs, and it has a high balance sheet, which kind of goes along with the Bloomberg reports that Sony's having a hard time pricing the system because of costly components. And I do think the PlayStation 5 is going to be $500, although I think when they set out to make this machine, I think they were aiming for $400 and cost just got away from them. The big point that Michael Pachter and Peter Moore are trying to make in this podcast is that Microsoft can absorb the cost of pricing the Xbox Series X extremely low, undercutting the PlayStation 5. And if that were to happen, if Microsoft somehow was able to do that, that would change the landscape for next generation. I think if the Series X came in at $400 and the PlayStation 5 was $500, Microsoft would easily regain the lead, not only in the United States, but also in the UK. I still think they would lose globally, as PlayStation is really entrenched in Europe and Asia, but Microsoft would definitely regain a lot of lost market share. It would be such an utterly ridiculous bold move if somehow Team Xbox and Phil Spencer were able to pull that off. Yeah, they could probably subsidize it over the course of time with new subscribers to Xbox Game Pass, subscribers from Xbox Live, and those sort of things, but it definitely would catch PlayStation off guard to the point where if Microsoft did do that, I would half expect PlayStation to immediately say, oh wait, did we say $500? We really meant $400. And the reason why the pricing is so important to Sony is because the PlayStation is their meal ticket. They need that system to take off. And if suddenly the PlayStation found themselves in basically a reverse 2013, where now they have the weaker system and they're $100 more expensive than Xbox Series X, that might cause some alarm bells to go off within PlayStation and Sony, forcing them to cut price before the system even came out. Now, personally, I would love to see Microsoft be that aggressive. I think the system's gonna be $500, and I think it's gonna be a steal for what's inside the system. But if somehow they were to sell it for $400, that would be insane. But you know what they say about things that sound too good to be true, right? Now, do I agree with Michael Pachter in a lot of different ways here? Yes, I 100% believe that the PS5 is going to be $500. I agree with them on that. And I also agree that Microsoft is waiting for Sony to go first. However, I do not think the Xbox Series X is going to be $400. It sounds like the bill of materials for Xbox Series X is going to be more than $500. So when Microsoft prices that system at $500, they're going to be taking a loss to sell it to us. So the idea of them taking an even greater loss, well over $100, to give it to us at $399 doesn't make a lot of sense, because the Xbox division really doesn't make enough money themselves to cover that. Sure, Microsoft as a company can, but I'm not sure they view Xbox the same way they would view something like Azure. And then you have the rumors of Xbox Lockhart, the cheaper next-gen system. Where does that fit in? If Series X is $399, what do you do with Lockhart? Is that now $199? The idea of a two SKU approach is because you have one system that's going to be quite expensive, but that's okay because you have the cheaper one at a more mass market price point. So in this case of Series X being $400, Lockhart has no place in that structure. Of course, you could make the argument that Lockhart maybe doesn't exist, or maybe Microsoft canceled it, but I'm in the camp of firmly believing that Lockhart is real, so the pricing of Series X at $400 doesn't make any sense to me. And you know what? I haven't even mentioned the whole Michael Pachter prediction thing. He's gone on to say a whole bunch of different things before, like how the PlayStation 5 was going to be $800. And usually when he says something, you can expect the opposite to happen. But I think with Michael, he likes it when his name is out there and when people are talking about him. That's why I think he said this. I think he knows that the Xbox Series X isn't going to be $400, but he says it because he knows it'll be picked up by news stations and YouTubers like myself. And one last thing before I get out of here, I'll just say that Microsoft will be extremely happy, and they think they'll have won if the PlayStation 5 is the same price as Series X, because they've been planning this whole time that the PlayStation 5 was gonna be cheaper. It's kind of why Lockhart exists in the first place. So if the PS5 and Series X are exactly the same price, then Microsoft will have a big smile. Anyways, guys, that's the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Share this out on social media and tell a friend about the channel. And if you want to be notified immediately when I drop a new video, make sure you hit the notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later, guys.